There is nothing dangerous or extreme about defending the Constitution and the civil liberties therein. And there's nothing strange at all about standing as people of faith for a country that we built, that we believe in. But there is something a bit strange. There is something a bit unusual about a Republican primary that's decided by liberal Democrats.
Boy, if you think that photo finish in Mississippi is going away anytime soon, are you wrong? Another run for Charlie Rangel, and yet another moment to dissect the possibilities for the Tea Party come the midterm elections. That and much more. Let's enter the political arena. First, welcome in Republican strategist and a man who cannot tell you everything he knows about what goes on inside the Beltway, or he would have to inflict great physical pain. Kurt Bardella joins us. Kurt, thanks so much for joining us today on MidPoint.
Thanks for having me back on.
And also welcome in host of The Good Fight, a former campaign director and press secretary who likewise can never reveal all he knows for fear of disappearing suddenly. Shh. Ben Wikler joins us today. Ben, thanks for being with us.
It's great to be here, Ed.
All right, Ben, I'm going to throw this one at you first. Chris McDaniel is hot in his loss to Thad Cochran yesterday in the primary runoff elections. The Democrats definitely went and voted for Cochran, and he is sniffing something unhappy going on here. But isn't Mississippi a different animal, and we almost expected that this could happen?
Sure. I mean, to me, the most fascinating thing about what happened last night in Mississippi is that a Republican got a bunch of African-American votes, and across the country, conservatives are reacting with outrage. I would hope that conservatives would be excited to have African Americans voting for a Republican candidate. It's not something that's happened very much in the last few years, and if the Republican Party wants to be a big tent party, it's going to have to figure out how to appeal to these voters. So I'm scratching my head a little bit, I'm afraid to say, at the kind of shock, the allegations of irregularities, all of these kinds of reactions to something that might be the most hopeful sign, in a way, for Republicans being able to be a big tent party in a long time.
All right, Kurt, I got to throw this to you because Ben just tossed out the word outrage over the fact that African Americans got involved and helped decide this runoff. Do you see outrage, or is that maybe a little hyperbole?
No, there's no question there's outrage. And the reason why is it's not about Republicans are upset that African Americans voted for a Republican. It's that the establishment movement used African-American Democrats to manipulate the outcome of a Republican primary. And that's where the outrage comes from. It's the interference and the most treacherous of politics to try to capitalize on out of Republican Party voters to impact and influence the outcome of what should have been a Republican primary dictated and determined by Republican voters. Democrats and independents will have their shot in November to participate in the election. They should not have been able to participate in this special runoff primary situation.
All right, so what does this say about the Tea Party then? Because we had a couple of things happen on Tuesday which would lead us to believe, again, here come the pundits saying that the Tea Party may not be as back or as strong as some people believe here. Certainly the defeat in Mississippi and other defeats in other elections tell them that maybe we're overestimating.
How often have we heard this narrative take shape, that the Tea Party's dead, that the movement is dead, that they're not as impactful, and then what happens in another election, they have a big win. And I think that at the end of the day, it's not about one race and one state and one district. It's about the overall conversation. And I don't think anybody could deny that the Tea Party is having a profound impact on shaping the entire conversation that these campaigns are taking shape in. Ray Langford ran an ad about Benghazi. Eric Cantor, before he lost, ran an ad about his strength on combating amnesty. These aren't Republicans running an anti-Tea Party themes. They're, in fact, trying to cater to them and pander to them and are doing everything they can to try to get their support. So they're having a huge impact shaping the debate. And I challenge you, ask anyone who's running for president in 2016 on the Republican side if they think the Tea Party movement's dead. I'm sure they'll give you a very different answer.
Ben, you got to believe that there are some out there, certainly on the Democratic side, who are taking a lot of glee in what happened in Mississippi.
I'm sure there's a lot of glee, and I'm sure that Senator Cochran are also delighted that he won his primary election. I will say there's no question, Kurt, you're right. The Tea Party is definitely shaping the public debate. And what we're seeing is a Tea Party strong enough incapable of governing, but not strong enough to win a stable governing majority. It looks to me like the GOP is in a state of civil war that's kind of like the one in Iraq, minus the explosions.
Well, let me throw that up there.
Have a party
let
that
me
actually
throw that up
can't
there
come
for a
together
sec,
and
Ben.
deliver on any of the goals of its movement.
Ben, I want to throw something in there as you just talked about this, because here is a tweet that came out last night. This was quoted in one of the publications. It came out of the Daily Beast, where they said a Tea Party activist tweeted Tuesday night, quote, "If Cochran wins this race, the GOP is done. They teamed up with Dems to steal a race. Kiss the base goodbye." What do you think, Kurt? Kiss him goodbye?
Well, again, there's a lot of outrage, and it's very fresh being less than 24 hours into this. And the idea, frankly, that Republicans would collude with Democrats to try to, again, manipulate the outcome of an election presents a lot of emotion and anger, and rightfully so. And we'll see how that manifests itself in the days forward. Chris McDaniel has already said he's going to challenge the outcome of this election and use whatever legal tools might be available to him to do so. It was a very, very narrow win. And at the end of the day, less than 4,000 votes or so determined this election. It's hard for I think anyone to say that there is a mandate for the Tea Party being dead based off of that. And again, ask Eric Cantor if he thinks the Tea Party movement's dead.
Hey, Ben, with all the improprieties that Charlie Rangel has been involved in over the years, he survives for yet another term. What he says is his 23rd. I will be very honest with you. I spoke to a lot of Democrats in the last few hours who even they are saying, why do we put this man in here? Because he is just not good for the Democratic Party. Your reaction?
Charlie Rangel got reelected because he has delivered for his constituents time and again. And that's the same thing that Cochran has done. In Mississippi, the idea that somehow these voters were used or manipulated to distort the outcome of the election, to me, ignores the fact that voters make up their mind about who they're going to support, whether they're going to turn out. These African-American voters weren't being used by someone. They were realizing that Thad Cochran was a better senator for them than McDaniel would be, and they came out to vote on that basis. We both know that in Mississippi, the primary is the general election for a Senate race like this. And these voters came out and expressed their mind. That's what democracy is supposed to be about. And, getting voters to turn out for you on the basis of what you can deliver for them, that's how things are supposed to work. That's how Rangel won his race. That's how Thad Cochran won his.
Isn't that how things are supposed to work, Kurt?
No, it's not how things are supposed to work. It shouldn't be about being able to basically buy votes, with empty promises and pretending that you're going to be able to deliver something that, frankly, you probably can't right now. And again, if these were truly motivated voters who believed in their candidate, why didn't they show up to vote the same way in the last primary a few weeks ago? Turnout was more in a runoff than it was in the regularly scheduled primary a few weeks ago, which is fairly unprecedented from a turnout standpoint. If these people were passionate believers in Thad Cochran, they would have voted before, but they didn't.
Oklahoma also is someplace we need to discuss as well, because James Lankford winning the Republican Senate primary there. He tops former State House Speaker T.W. Shannon. Isn't that another defeat for the Tea Party? Kurt?
See, here's the thing about Lankford, and this is why it's very different than the situation with Thad Cochran. Brett Lankford's a conservative. This is someone who has served on the Oversight Committee for years now, holding accountable the Obama administration's failures with IRS, Benghazi, Fast and Furious. It's the reason why he got support from Congressman Darrell Issa, who went to Oklahoma and campaigned for him. So, Ray Lankford is a conservative. This wasn't someone who can be called establishment or someone who supports amnesty and who hits the issues that usually drive wedges between conservatives and the establishment. Lankford's not that guy. And Lankford, the fact that, again, he ran an ad touting his work on Benghazi and the Oversight Committee. So he actually is a conservative.
All right, I got 2 minutes. No, okay, go ahead, Ben.
I would say, wouldn't you say that the fact that there was such a primary challenge to him kind of speaks to the way that the Tea Party has a habit not of picking up the baton of Republican politics or conservative politics, but rather of snapping the baton in half? Why were they going after him? Why was this a targeted race that people were ramping up for if they were fighting against a conservative? It just seems like civil war for civil war's sake at this point, disarray for the sake of chaos.
I think that's a fair point, Kurt.
And brought a lot to the table. He's a very attractive candidate who's articulate, has had a great distinguished career in public service as Speaker of the state legislature. And he would have been a very dynamic presence, I think, for the Republican Party to have had in office. So, this was nothing but a positive potential addition. But I don't think anyone can dispute that Ray Lankford wouldn't be a very good and capable senator representing the conservative movement. And I think he will cast himself as someone who is a conservative in the states and in the U.S. Senate.
I have a very short period of time. I have to get to you about 20 seconds each. Just happened in the last hour or so. Nouri al-Maliki, the Prime Minister of Iraq, has rejected the American calls for a national salvation government to put everybody together. Where does the administration need to go from here? Ben, I'll go to you first.
We all know that Iraq will not have peace if the government doesn't represent all the people of Iraq. So if there's not going to be peace, there's no reason why the U.S. should even think about getting involved militarily. At this point, the idea that dropping bombs could actually resolve Iraq's religious civil war is just laughable. And I hope that the administration isn't listening to the likes of John McCain and Paul Wolfowitz as it considers its options now.
Kurt, 20 seconds.
This is a lot bigger than Iraq. This is about the entire stability of the Middle East, and the United States has to play an active role in ensuring that the enemies that we have in ISIS and the strength of Syria is negated. That we do everything we can to aid those who are fighting back in Iran and in Syria, whether it be targeted airstrikes, whether it be providing more support along the border. Something has to be done, and doing nothing certainly isn't an option.
We have taken up the time. Kurt Bardella, Ben Wikler, thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll do it again. We'll get you back in the arena soon.
See you soon.
Thanks
All
so
right,
much.
here we go. It's time for America to decide, and of course, we'll decide as we help to give you some of the answers. Because here on MidPoint, on the Newsmax TV network, every day we question everything.